Hi, all. This is Dr. Sage Breslin, and this is Wisdom Wednesdays. I'm guessing it's going to be an evening edition by the time you see this. I wanted to share a little bit about a conversation I had the other day with one of my wise warriors. And this is a male client. I know I talk a lot about my old soul women clients. This happened to be an old soul male client I'm working with. And he is what I would refer to as an unassuming wise warrior. And there's something about him that I so cherish. Like all wise warriors, there is this level of passion below the surface, passion and devotion to the cause. I think because from very early on, I was in situations where nobody had my back. I think I have this incredible, soft spot in my heart for people who devote their lives, who've come here to the planet to not only be of service, but to passionately devote themselves to ensuring justice for all, ensuring that everyone has what they deserve if they can do it, right? And it's just something that we can feel about the wise warrior. It's not just, it's very funny. I've worked with a lot of combat veterans in my time. It's where I started out. I started out serving those who served in Vietnam and, did it for 25 years. And so there are certainly warriors who may not actually be old soul wise warriors. But then there are quite a few who are, wise warriors who also fought in combat. And then there are the other wise warriors who have come here to really devote themselves, not necessarily through fighting in combat, but in other ways. I certainly know wise warriors who are attorneys, who are in protective services like the police force. I know journalists who are wise warriors. And, in this case, a teacher or an educator. And wise warriors, they walk the earth looking for ways in which they can uplift people by helping them to become more self-sufficient. And if they can't, then they're there to have their back. And I'm sure that's the one that kind of triggers me every time. But, the other thing about wise warriors is it's a lonely path. It's a challenging path. It can be a dangerous path. And I know so many people will say things like, well, through all the hardships, you became a wise warrior. And while that may be true for some, the majority of our old soul wise warriors, they came here that way. And with that big soul energy, there were a lot of people who either wanted to knock them down to size or feed on their energy and may have caused them into, circumstances that were very traumatic or challenging. And so I'd say it's not the old soul who, it's not the victim who becomes an old soul as a result, but an old soul who is potentially victimized or manages traumatic circumstances, who also has an internal resilience to not only survive, but to thrive. And that resilience is due to their connection with the divine. It is having that old soul in the driver's seat, right? They don't necessarily get depleted by these things because they're plugged in. They're plugged into a much bigger power source. Now, if, like in my case, I had already put my old soul into safekeeping, and so when I got into traumatic circumstances, Unfortunately, all I was using was my human energy, and I got further and further and further depleted until I was, until I almost lost my battle. So, yeah, so I think the wise warriors must have a very tender spot in my heart for the walk that they make, the path that they're on, the journey that they're on. And, one of the things I'm so aware of, not only with this client, but many of the wise warrior women that I work with, they are so deeply passionate about what they do or why they're here or why they're invested in the causes that they are, is that when somebody is able to feed on them, when somebody moves them into a position where they are dependent, where they're disempowered, where they're disconnected from their own souls, when they feel that that somebody has control over their lives, it becomes a battle for their lives. They are fit to be tied, and they will nearly fight to the death to get out of those situations. And when they can't, when they find themselves subordinated or gaslit or emotionally abused, these wise warriors, they can feel as if they'd rather die. They may even become suicidal as a result. So, that is definitely a downside to being a wise warrior, a downside to being so devoted to the cause and to others that sometimes the self doesn't feel like it can survive being subordinated. And none of us like to be subordinated, but yeah, this is different for wise warriors. So I just wanted to share a little bit about, some of the things that I absolutely love about our wise warriors, and some of the things that are really challenging for wise warriors. And again, being on what is a very individual, sometimes isolating journey can be a challenge. Sometimes our wise warriors like that. They might even find it easier, but it can be a lonely path and it can be a real challenge. So, if this sounds familiar to you, or if you might know somebody that sounds like that, have them take a look at the oldsoulwomen.com and let them take the Old Soul Woman quiz. They might learn something about themselves. So if you're a wise warrior and you're walking that very singular path, and perhaps it's time for some support, please feel free to DM me, maybe even just to know that you have a tribe there waiting to support you. And if you don't know what kind of old soul woman you are yet, then I would love for you to take the quiz and let us know, what kind of old soul are you? This is Dr. Sage Breslin, and this is Wisdom Wednesdays.